I'm so sorry, but somebody needs to clean up where I was sitting. If that's cool. Hey guys, welcome to my channel where I grace ambitious women with all things beauty, fashion, and lifestyle. So as you may know, courtesy of my last try-on video, pregnancy has fallen upon me. With that being said, it has very easily fallen off. Yes, my wonderful Joey is out. You do not know how excited I am to say that. Literally, oh my gosh. Yeah. By the end of this video, you will probably know exactly why I am so happy right now, because it was not fun. So yeah, this pregnancy has not been easy by any means. Literally at every turn, there was always something. But, now I'm here with you guys sharing what has turned out to be a series that I decided to do on this pregnancy. And it was all due to the fact that, the trials and tribulations that happen to come with it. I'm honestly thinking that this video will be split into 2 parts because there's a lot that I have to tell you guys, and I don't really want to leave anything out. Obviously, I'm going to leave out all of the, fluff and whatever, but there was a lot. So, I also have some amazing tips and resources that should be coming down the pipeline for you guys. So please stay tuned for that, because I promise you I put so much time and effort into it so you guys can actually benefit from it. So, stick around for that. But anyways, let's get into this video because that's what you guys are here for. Okay, so we are going to start from the beginning. So in June of 2020 is when I found out that I was pregnant, and it was literally like I was so happy. I was so happy about it. But that did not last long at all. By the time July came around, I was literally experiencing all of the symptoms that you could possibly, experience during your first trimester of pregnancy. So that wasn't fun. And the funny thing, I was even experiencing things that usually come along later on. Just to give you a little bit of insight about what I was experiencing, I'll break it down for you. There was fatigue. There was excess saliva. Gross. There was very high levels of food aversions, which literally I was on the brat diet for maybe a month or 2 because I could not. Nothing was. I also had a really high sensitivity to so many scents, including the scent of my own husband, which was rough. I also was nauseous for majority of the day, which, thinking about it, you may think, oh, nausea, that's not too bad. You're not vomiting. Wrong. There were so many times when I was just like, can I just, throw up already so this is over? But, it was never at the point. I was always just at the brink of wanting to head to the toilet, but it was just there. There was long periods of just hoping to throw up. It was... With that being said, I did vomit, but it didn't last very long, so it was whatever. Although I did usually vomit when I was eating the things that I really liked the most, so I was very upset at the fact that I'd finished my meal and then it would come out the gross way after. There was a lot of pasta that went to waste. I'm not going to mention the diarrhea that I had, but I'll just leave it there. We're just gonna leave it there. Ooh, we also had the gas, the bloating, the indigestion, the heartburn. We had it all. And this was still the first trimester. This was literally all of it. But, funny enough, all of those symptoms that, are likely to happen during pregnancy, it it was the least of my problems, apparently. So I spent all of July hoping that these symptoms would leave me alone. And then they finally did. And I was so excited. I was like, yay, I can finally enjoy, the second trimester that everybody's talking about. And, it's great, it's cool, the symptoms died down. So, yeah, that happened. And I was like, yes, is this really happening? Is this really my time to just, relax a bit, enjoy my pregnancy? So, around August, my family and I moved, and that was literally one of the most stressful situations I have ever been in my entire life, and it all could have been avoided if, we weren't dealing with people. But anyways, there was a lot of renovations that needed to be done. I am the handy person in the household, and because I was pregnant, I could not do a lot of it. Actually, I really couldn't do most of it because with the symptoms I was experiencing, I was literally, I couldn't stand up for more than 5 minutes at a time. So yes, August 8th. So this was, a little ways into our renovations, and some of our relatives actually came to help us out, which was amazing. I really appreciate them so much. So yeah, we were all working that day, and I really didn't want to look like a bum. And at this point, nobody else knew about the pregnancy, and I was trying to, keep it on the down low. So I was trying to find something to do that, made it seem like I was putting in the same amount of effort as everybody else without, damaging myself. So yeah. So what I decided to do is I actually started removing some of the wallpaper in the bathroom. And yeah, it really wasn't a difficult job. It was just, some scraping, I guess. And yeah, it was basically just little scrapes here and there to take off the wallpaper. And I'm in there with my sister, and literally I start feeling this gush of something. It felt like fluidy. So I just I kindly asked my sister to leave the bathroom so, I could check it out. And, so what I found is there was, a little bit of fluid, and there was a little bit of blood, but it was mixing together. So it was just I was like, okay, this is kind of, but they say there's, blood sometimes. So I was just waiting and seeing. And then, she came back in. I told her, I'm done using the bathroom. So she came back in, and we started, going back at the wallpaper. And next thing, gush again. So I was like, oh, okay. Can you leave the bathroom again, please? I just have to pee, again. And she was like, okay. So she leaves the bathroom. I check again. And this time, I'm seeing a little bit more blood. And I was like, okay. Okay. So, she comes back in. I promise you, this is not how the whole story goes. She comes back in, and long and behold, 2 other times I asked her to just leave the bathroom so, I can check. And it's just, more and more blood just, making an appearance. And I was like, oh, this is blood. So it gets to the point where, I call my husband over, and I'm like, I'm thinking I should probably go to the hospital because, there's just a lot of blood coming out of me. And he was like, oh, okay. He was worried. But so yeah, and he also stayed behind because, again, we didn't want to worry anybody, and people didn't know. So he stayed behind to help also with the renovations. And I was just like, okay guys, I'm heading out, bye, I'll see you guys later. And I left. And at this point it was 3 p.m. So yeah, at this point it was about 3 p.m. when the bleeding started, and then by 3:15 is when, I headed out for the hospital. Worst part of that story is because we were in our new place, I literally, and it wasn't time, wasn't time. I wasn't expecting my period or anything like that, so I didn't have pads. Meanwhile, I'm like gushing on my way to the hospital, and honestly, I didn't think to ask for pads. That would have been really smart. But yeah, in that moment, I was just like scared. And so I rushed to the hospital. So by 4 o'clock, I arrive at Emerge, and I have to fill out the little, like, it's weird. I guess because of COVID, they have like this touchpad thing where you kind of check in to see what your symptoms are or whatever. So I checked in, I explained my symptoms. I'm like, I'm very pregnant and I am bleeding right now. not great. So then like they got me this little ticket thing from the machine, and I sat down. Meanwhile, I'm like trying to cross my legs, and I'm like staying still because I'm like trying to keep in as much blood as possible. Like at this point, my pants are just like soaked completely. Like, yeah, so at that point, like I had to sit down to wait for my name to be called, and I'm sitting on the seat, and meanwhile I'm like Kool-Aid. Like I feel like I'm in, it is gross. So then they called me up to like check in or whatever you call it, and I look back and I'm like, there was so much blood on that seat, man. And like I turned to the girl at the kiosk and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but somebody needs to clean up where I was sitting. If that's cool. So yeah, after I finally check in, they bring me to a room, and I was like, I asked them, can I have a diaper or something? Because there's like a lot of blood coming out of me, and like they're leading me to the room, and like you can see like trails of blood on the floor. And yeah, so I get into the room and I'm waiting for the doctor, and yeah, then the doctor arrives. Okay, so here's where it gets really funny. So the doctor comes in, and he, asked me the standard questions, in terms of like how the bleeding might have happened. And then he says, okay, I'm gonna do an internal exam just to check everything out. And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. So, he goes in for the exam, and he's like, wait, they gave you a diaper? And I was like, yeah. And he was like shocked. He's like, oh, it's that much blood. And I was like, yeah. So he's doing the exam, and literally before he's even like finished completing the internal exam, he goes, so yeah, this looks like a miscarriage to me, and there's nothing I can do about it. Sorry. And I'm like laying back there, and the only thing that I could think to say was, okay, like, what do you do with that information? There's literally nothing you can do about that information, because the doctor is telling you that there's nothing he can do. So, yeah. But then he went on to say that he was also going to send me for an ultrasound just to make sure. And I was like, okay, like, you're the doctor. So I went down for the ultrasound, and literally the whole time I was just praying and praying and praying that somehow the doctor was wrong, and somehow, my baby was still great and fine and chilling. And yeah, I just sat there the whole time, and I was like, oh, please, please. And then when the ultrasound was done, when I tell you, I bawled my eyes out. Like, I was sitting there just bawling. And the ultrasound technician came to me, and he was like, there's no need to cry. Like, why are you crying? And I was like, okay, maybe that's some good news. I'm guessing it's good news if the ultrasound technician is telling me, I have no reason to be bawling my eyes out right now. So I took that as a good sign. So then I went back upstairs to the waiting area to wait for my results, and yeah. So at that point, it was pretty late. I really don't remember around what time that was, but yeah. At that point, my husband had actually arrived at the hospital, but due to COVID, he couldn't actually come into the hospital, and so he had to wait outside. Meanwhile, he's there with my change of clothes, because I asked him to bring me some clothes. And yeah, so we had to get like a security guard to bring my clothes to me. And he sat there and he sat outside and he waited for me to get my results, which took 6 hours. By the time we left the hospital, it was around 11 p.m. and yeah, so we got back the results and the doctor labeled it a threatened abortion, aka a threatened miscarriage. But, being the person I am, and especially because the doctor did not suit my fancy very much, I I sat the results of my exam myself, and I noticed on the results it said something about a subchorionic hematoma, and so yeah, I looked it up. So after I had looked up what that meant, it was basically just a pooling of blood in the uterus or around the uterus or something like that. And yeah, so the bleeding actually came back around the 10th and then it stopped again. But at that point I was still super worried because I had not had a follow-up appointment yet, which I was supposed to have the week after. At the hospital and then with my obstetrician. So I just spent that week I spent the week worried the whole time. So yeah, then I had my first appointment with my obstetrician the following week and she had confirmed that it was a subchorionic hematoma, and she told me that I had to go on pelvic rest and reduced activity, which was very frustrating because I was moving. So yeah, that wasn't fun. So like a normal person, I asked my obstetrician what could have caused this, and her answer was, I don't know. And apparently there was also still a lot of blood left that had to clear up. So then I also asked her, how would it clear up? And when could it be cleared up? And she said that it could be a couple of weeks before it cleared. And she also said that it could either be reabsorbed by the body or it could present itself as more bleeding. And I said, okay, there's really not much I could do with that information. I kind of just went with the flow. But the most important thing was that little baby was fine. And that's all I cared about at that point, and that, he would continue to be fine. Yeah, so that was basically that. I waited majority of my second trimester, just like anxiously waiting to see if the bleeding would come again or, completely go. And then there was all the symptoms that came with the bleeding, which I was so weak and tired all of the time. And on top of that, then I had the other pregnancy symptoms that come with it, especially, later on in pregnancy. My shortness of breath was ridiculous. That came around like mid to late second trimester, and when I'm telling you, I spent so much time just wheezing, like wheezing, and like any type of smoke, even from like just frying anything, I went on like a coughing spree. Like I could not breathe. I don't know, like he was so just high or something, or I feel like his legs were just like pushed up on my lungs or something. I don't know, but it was just horrible. But when I tell you, like, he dropped.